The rain over Muzidafu did not fall, it attacked. It drove down in sheets of icy, unrelenting gray, turning the concrete of the city's industrial district into a slick, treacherous mirror reflecting the flashing red and blue lights of police cruisers. Above the wail of sirens, the sound of tearing metal and the crackle of displaced air echoed through the canyon of warehouses. Izuku Midoriya, pro-hero name, Deku, skidded across the wet asphalt, his iron-soled boots carving shallow trenches into the ground to arrest his momentum. Steam rose from his dark green hero costume, the rain instantly vaporizing against the intense, ambient heat radiating from his body. Green lightning arched and snapped around him in a chaotic halo, illuminating the grim determination etched onto his freckled face. One for all, full call 45%. His heart hammered a frantic, steady rhythm against his ribs. The villain, a desperate man whose face was hidden beneath a jagged, self-made welding mask, was backed against the reinforced steel door of a robotics factory. The man's hands were glowing with an unstable, sickly violet light. It was a spatial quirk, a rare and often dangerous mutation. For the last 20 minutes, the villain had been opening localized wormholes, ripping chunks of concrete, abandoned cars, and street lamps from their moorings and launching them as high-velocity projectiles. But that wasn't what had Izuku's stomach tied in knots. Cowering behind a shattered delivery truck, not 30 feet from the villain, was a family. A mother, a father, and a little girl clutching a soaked plush toy. They had been caught in the crossfire when the villain's getaway car had crashed. "Stay back!" The villain screamed, his voice cracking with panic and raw vocal strain. The violet light around his hands began to pulse, expanding into a swirling vortex of deep, unnatural purple. The air around the vortex warped, bending the light like a funhouse mirror. "I swear, hero, I'll open a rift right under their feet. I'll drop them from 1,000 feet up." Izuku's mind, a perpetual engine of tactical analysis, raced. A spatial displacement quirk. He requires line of sight and somatic gestures, hand movements, to establish the entry and exit coordinates. The portals take approximately 1.4 seconds to fully manifest based on his previous attacks. If I move at 45%, I can clear the distance in 0.6 seconds. But the vortex he's forming now, it's different. It's unstable. The edges are fraying. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing spike of pain erupted in Izuku's skull. Danger sense. The fourth user's quirk didn't just warn him, it screamed. It was a visceral, sickening jolt that tasted like copper in the back of his throat. The villain had lost control. The swirling violet energy in his hands suddenly imploded, then expanded outward in a violent, concussive wave of collapsing gravity. It wasn't a targeted portal. It was a tear in the fabric of reality itself. A black hole of violet energy ripped open in the center of the street, pulling everything toward it with hurricane force. Raindrops altered their trajectory, flying horizontally into the rift. The shattered delivery truck groaned, its massive frame sliding across the wet pavement toward the void, and the family was right in its path. "No!" Izuku roared. He didn't think. He didn't hesitate. The instinct to save, buried so deep in his marrow that it preceded conscious thought, took over. Green lightning flared into blinding brilliance. The asphalt beneath his boots shattered into dust. Izuku crossed the distance faster than the eye could track. He bypassed the villain entirely, throwing himself between the expanding spatial rift and the screaming family. The gravitational pull was immense, tearing at his costume, pulling the air from his lungs. Black whip! Tendrils of dark, pulsing energy erupted from his forearms. He didn't use them to attack. Instead, he lashed them backward, wrapping the thick, dark bands of energy around the chassis of a heavily anchored police armored vehicle 50 yards down the street. With his anchor set, Izuku braced his boots against the sliding delivery truck, acting as a living barrier between the civilian family and the vortex. His muscles bulged, the fibers of his body protesting under the impossible strain of fighting a localized black hole. "Get back!" Izuku grunted, his voice strained as the violet light washed over him, casting deep, unnatural shadows across his face. "Run! Now!" The father grabbed his wife and daughter, scrambling backward through the pouring rain, away from the pull of the rift. Izuku held the line. The strain on Black Whip was tremendous. The armored car groaned, its tires smoking as it was dragged inches forward. The vortex was growing, its edges jagged and shrieking with the sound of tearing canvas. Danger sense flared again, a localized warning. Izuku glanced at the villain. The man was staring at the vortex in absolute horror, his hands trembling. He had pushed his quirk past its absolute limit, triggering a quirk singularity event. The villain turned and ran, but the rift caught the edge of his coat. In a fraction of a second, Izuku had to make a choice. If he held his ground, the villain would be sucked into the unstable rift. A rift that, given its erratic energy signature, would likely crush a normal human body to atomic dust. A hero saves everyone. Izuku dropped his black whip tethered to the armored car. The sudden release of tension shot him forward. He lunged, grabbing the villain by the collar of his jacket and hurling him backward, away from the rift, with a massive heave of his arm. The villain hit the wet pavement, sliding safely out of the gravitational pull. But Izuku's momentum, coupled with the loss of his anchor, sealed his fate. He was caught. The violet energy swallowed him. The sound of the rain, the sirens, and the roaring wind vanished in an instant, replaced by a deafening, absolute silence. Izuku Midoriya fell into the void. There was no up. There was no down. Izuku tumbled through a kaleidoscopic tunnel of impossible geometry. Colors that didn't exist in the natural spectrum bled into one another, washing over him in waves of cold fire. He couldn't breathe, yet his lungs didn't burn. He couldn't move, held in a stasis of raw kinetic energy. Deep within him, the core of One for All thrummed. It felt restless. The vestiges, the previous wielders of the power whose echoes lived within his soul, were silent, but the power itself flared defensively, acting as a biological shield against the crushing pressure of the spatial tunnel. Time lost all meaning. It could have been a millisecond, it could have been a century, and then, the silence shattered. Sound rushed back with the force of a physical blow. The roaring in his ears was the sound of rushing wind. Izuku's eyes snapped open. The violent, swirling colors were gone, replaced by a canvas of pristine, unbroken azure blue. He was in the sky. And he was falling. Fast. Wah! Izuku gasped, choking on the sudden rush of oxygen. He flipped his body mid-air, orienting himself face down to assess his situation. The breath was stolen from his lungs anew, not from the fall, but from the sight below him. There was no concrete. No skyscrapers. No sprawling, neon-lit grid of Nizurifu. Below him stretched an endless ocean of deep, vibrant green. It was a forest, but the scale was entirely wrong. The trees were titanic, their trunks as thick as apartment buildings, their canopies spreading out like massive, leafy continents. A river cut through the emerald expanse, glittering like a silver ribbon in the bright, midday sun. Where am I? Izuku's mind raced, panic threatening to claw its way up his throat. A spatial displacement. The villain lost control. I've been warped. But where? The Amazon? No, the flora is wrong. And the air, it's too clean. There's no smog, no ambient hum of electricity. He was dropping at terminal velocity. The colossal canopy of the forest was rushing up to meet him. Focus! Izuku commanded himself, slapping his cheeks with his gloved hands to break his own panic. Prioritize survival. Stop the fall. He instinctively reached for float, the quirk of the seventh user, Nana Shimura. He felt the familiar, weightless sensation try to take hold, but his momentum was too great. The sudden deceleration wrenched his shoulders, threatening to dislocate them. He needed to bleed off speed quickly. Izuku pulled his right leg back, green lightning erupting around his body. One for all, full call 20%. Air force. He kicked downward into the empty air. Smash! The localized pressure of the kick created a massive shockwave of compressed air. The concussive force exploded downward, pushing Izuku upward and significantly slowing his descent. He fired off 3 more rapid kicks, moving his body in a jagged, descending zigzag pattern, using the air itself as a staircase. He crashed through the uppermost canopy. Leaves the size of dining tables shattered against his iron saws. Branches as thick as oak trunks whipped at him. He crossed his arms over his face, protecting his head as he plummeted through the dense foliage. He fired one last Air Force blast just feet above a massive, moss-covered branch, cushioning his impact. He hit the wood hard, rolling to distribute the kinetic energy, and skidded to a halt, his boots carving deep gouges into the ancient bark. Izuku lay on his back, staring up through the gaps in the leaves at the blue sky. His chest heaved. He was alive. Nothing felt broken. He sat up slowly, groaning as his bruised muscles protested. He performed a quick diagnostic check of his gear. His dark green jumpsuit was torn in a few places, the fabric singed by the spatial rift. His mid-gauntlets, designed by Melissa Shield to brace his arms against the recoil of One for All, were scuffed but structurally sound. His iron-soled boots were intact. He reached up to the side of his cowl, pressing the button on his built-in earpiece. Midoriya to Yui dispatch. Come in. Do you read me? Static. A hiss of white noise. Midoriya to any pro-hero on this frequency. This is Deku. I was caught in a villain's spatial displacement quirk. I need a geographic fix. Does anyone copy? Nothing. Not even the faint crackle of encrypted police chatter. The airwaves were completely, utterly dead. Izuku swallowed hard. The silence of the comms was unnerving. Even in the most remote parts of Japan, you could pick up something. A satellite ping, a stray radio broadcast. Here, there was only an electromagnetic void. He stood up, walking to the edge of the massive branch. He looked down. The forest floor was easily 100 feet below him, cloaked in deep shadows. Then, danger sense hummed. It wasn't a sharp, painful spike like when the villain attacked. It was a low, steady vibration in the base of his skull. It felt like standing next to a massive, purring generator. Izuku closed his eyes, concentrating on the sensation. What is that? It's not malice. It's not an immediate threat to my life. It's just energy. Ever since awakening the fourth user's quirk, Izuku had become attuned to the negative emotions and intent of those around him. But this was different. He could feel a vibrant, thrumming energy radiating from the trees, the earth, the very air itself. It was wild, untamed, and everywhere. It felt almost like the aura of a quirk, but it was woven into the fabric of the environment. Where exactly did that portal send me? Izuku took a deep breath. Okay. Step 1, find civilization. Step 2, find the local authorities. Step 3, contact UA and figure out how to get home. He dropped off the branch, using a quick burst of full cowl to land softly on the forest floor, his boots making barely a whisper against the moss. He began to walk north, using the position of the sun. He didn't know it yet, but the trees he was walking through belonged to the land of fire. And he was not alone. 3 miles away, the leaves of the upper canopy barely rustled as 4 figures moved through the trees at breakneck speed. To an ordinary eye, they would be nothing more than blurs of color, a flash of orange, a streak of pink, a shadow of blue, and a phantom of silver. They leaped from branch to branch with practiced, effortless grace, defying gravity as they bounded over gaps that would kill an Olympic long jumper. Team 7 was returning home to Kanehigakure, the Hidden Leaf Village. Uzumaki Naruto landed lightly on a branch, his bright orange jumpsuit standing out starkly against the deep greens of the forest. He immediately launched himself forward again, his hands tucked behind his back. Man, I am so bored, Naruto complained, his loud, grating voice shattering the serene quiet of the woods. A C-rank mission? More like a D-rank minus. All we did was walk that grumpy merchant to the border. We didn't even get attacked by bandits. Not a single one. I was totally ready to bust out my new moves too. Quiet down, idiot. Sakura Haruno snapped, leaping to a branch parallel to him. Her pink hair caught the dappled sunlight. The mission isn't officially over until we report to the Hokage, and you complaining the whole way back is giving me a headache. But Sakura-chan, Naruto whined, pouting. Aren't you bored? We're ninja. We're supposed to be fighting rogue shinobi, rescuing princesses, doing awesome stuff, not playing bodyguards for a guy who smells like cabbage. A few paces ahead of them, Uchiha Sasuke scoffed. He landed perfectly, barely making a sound, and pushed off without breaking his stride. If bandits had attacked, you would have just gotten in the way, dope. You couldn't even handle a simple escort formation without tripping over your own feet. What did you say, team? Naruto flared, a vein popping on his forehead. I'll show you who gets in the way. Let's spar right now. I'll kick your ma. A lazy voice drifted down from the branches above them. Hatake Kakashi, the leader of Team 7, dropped down to hang upside down from a thick branch, suspended solely by the chakra focused in the soles of his sandals. He held a small, orange book in his hand, his single visible eye completely engrossed in the text. His silver hair defied gravity, and his dark mask covered the lower half of his face. Save your energy, you two, Kakashi said, turning a page of make-out tactics with a casual flick of his wrist. Naruto, a shinobi must appreciate periods of peace. Not every mission requires shedding blood. And Sasuke, antagonizing your teammate lowers unit cohesion. We are 30 miles from the village gates. Let's just have a nice, quiet boom. A concussive shockwave rippled through the air, carrying the distant, unnatural sound of shattering timber. A flock of birds, miles away, erupted from the canopy in a panicked cloud. Kakashi stopped reading. The lazy, drooping posture vanished in an instant. He flipped off the branch, landing on his feet, his posture rigid and alert. The orange book disappeared into his pouch with a blur of motion. Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto skidded to a halt, their previous bickering instantly forgotten. They dropped into defensive stances, kunai appearing in their hands as if by magic. What was that? Sakura whispered, her eyes wide as she scanned the dense forest. An explosive tag? Too loud, Sasuke analyzed, his dark eyes narrowing. And the frequency was wrong. It sounded like a massive impact. Something hit the ground hard. An enemy attack? Naruto asked, a grin slowly spreading across his face. Finally, hold your position, Kakashi commanded, his voice low, stripped of its previous lethargy. It was the voice of the copy ninja. He closed his visible eye, reaching out with his senses. He didn't feel a massive spike of chakra, which was odd. An explosion of that magnitude should have required a significant jutsu, yet the ambient chakra in the air felt relatively undisturbed. Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked nervously. 2.5 miles east, Kakashi said, opening his eye. A localized impact. No secondary explosions. No smoke. It could be a trap, or it could be a rogue summon. We investigate, but we do it silently. Formation B. Keep to the shadows. Do not engage unless ordered. Yes, sensei, the three genin replied in unison. With a flicker of movement, Team 7 vanished into the canopy, moving toward the epicenter of the disturbance. Izuku had been walking for about 20 minutes. The sheer scale of the forest was awe-inspiring, but the complete lack of modern infrastructure was deeply concerning. He hadn't seen a single power line, not a scrap of trash, not the faintest tire track. It was pristine, ancient wilderness. He was busy muttering to himself, a habit he had never quite managed to break when deep in thought. He held his right hand up, ticking off points on his fingers. Assuming a standard wormhole trajectory, the energy required to displace a human mass over an intercontinental distance would require a minimum output of 50 gigajoules. The villain didn't have that kind of latent power. Therefore, it wasn't a distance displacement. It was a dimensional or coordinate tier. Which means I could be in an entirely different spatial plane, but the gravity feels identical to Earth at 9.8 meters per second squared. The oxygen content might be slightly higher given the size of the flora, which suggests, high in the branches above, 4 pairs of eyes watched him. Team 7 had arrived at the perimeter of the crater Izuku had made upon landing, only to track his surprisingly heavy, distinct footprints away from the crash site. They had found him walking aimlessly, talking rapidly to himself. From his hidden vantage point, Sasuke scrutinized the stranger. He's wearing armor, Sasuke thought, taking in the dark green bodysuit, the thick metallic boots, and the reinforced gauntlets that covered his arms up to the bicep. A foreign shinobi? The clothing is strange. I've never seen a hidden village crest like that. And he doesn't have a weapon pouch or a Hittite headband. Sakura watched the boy with confusion. He looks our age. Maybe a year or two older. But he's talking to himself like a crazy person. And what's with those metal saws? They must weigh a ton. How can he move stealthily in those? Naruto was squinting. He's got green hair. Weird. Kakashi observed the boy intently. The stranger's gait was relaxed, but his shoulders were broad, his posture balanced. He walked like a trained fighter, yet he made absolutely no effort to mask his presence. He was stomping through the forest like a civilian, leaving a trail a blind academy student could follow. Who are you? Kakashi wondered. You dropped from the sky and survived a fall that should have shattered every bone in your body, judging by the crater you left. Yet you don't seem injured. And your chakra? Kakashi frowned beneath his mask. That was the strangest part. Kakashi's senses were sharp, but when he tried to gauge the boy's chakra reserves, he hit a wall. He didn't feel the familiar, flowing coil system of a shinobi. He felt something else. A dense, tightly packed core of pure, physical vitality. It was bizarre. Kakashi raised a hand, signaling his team to hold and observe. He wanted to see what the boy would do. Down on the forest floor, Izuku stopped walking. He didn't know why, but the hairs on the back of his neck suddenly stood up. The low hum of danger sense that he had been ignoring suddenly sharpened into a distinct prickle. It wasn't the screaming agony of a lethal threat, but it was a clear, unmistakable warning: you are being watched. Izuku paused his muttering. He didn't look around frantically. Pro-hero training had taught him better than that. He kept his posture relaxed, scanning his peripheral vision. Above me. 4 distinct presences. They're trying to hide, but the intent to observe is strong. Izuku slowly turned around, looking up into the dense canopy. He couldn't see them through the thick leaves, but he knew exactly where they were. Hello? Izuku called out, his voice clear and steady. He raised his hands slowly to show he was unarmed, keeping his palms open. I know you're up there. I don't want any trouble. I'm completely lost. I was caught in a quirk accident, and I think I'm far from home. Can you tell me what prefecture this is? In the trees, Team 7 tensed. He spotted us, Sasuke hissed quietly, his pride instantly stung. He was the top of his class in stealth. How had this weird, muttering kid sensed them without even looking? What's a quirk? Sakura whispered, equally confused. And what's a prefecture? He's speaking our language, but his dialect is strange, Kakashi noted softly. And he knew our exact positioning. Kakashi's eyes narrowed. He claims to be lost, but this could be a feint. Stay sharp. Izuku waited a beat. No response. I'm a pro-hero. Izuku tried again, hoping the title would carry weight. Well, an in-training pro-hero. My name is Deku. If you're local heroes or law enforcement, I just need to get to a phone or a police station. Pro-hero? Sasuke thought, his grip tightening on his kunai. Is that a new mercenary group? He's mocking us. He sensed us, and now he's trying to drop our guard with nonsense words. Sasuke didn't wait for Kakashi's order. The Uchiha pride combined with the lingering adrenaline from the dull mission spurred him to act. If this stranger was a threat, Sasuke would prove he could handle it. Sasuke dropped from the branch. Izuku's danger sense flared, a sharp spike of hostile intent. He looked up to see a boy, no older than himself, wearing blue and white clothing with a strange fan symbol on his back, falling toward him. The boy whipped his hands forward. 3 black, star-shaped blades spun through the air, aimed perfectly at Izuku's chest and shoulders. Shuriken? Izuku thought, his eyes widening in shock. Real, sharpened shuriken? Why is the kid throwing lethal weapons? Izuku didn't panic. The shuriken were fast, but to eyes accustomed to tracking explosions, sniper fire, and villains moving at supersonic speeds, they appeared to be moving in slow motion. Green lightning instantly crackled over Izuku's skin. 5%. He leaned back, a textbook matrix dodge. The 3 shuriken whistled past his chest, slicing harmlessly through the empty air and thunking deeply into the trunk of a tree behind him. Sasuke landed gracefully a few feet away, his eyes widening for a fraction of a second in surprise. He dodged that. I threw those in my blind spot. And what is that green electricity? A lightning release jutsu without hand signs? Hey! Wait! Izuku yelled, taking a defensive stance but keeping his hands open. I don't want to fight. Why are you attacking me? Sasuke didn't answer. He drew a kunai from his holster, gripping it in a reverse hold, and lunged. He was incredibly fast for his age, moving with a fluid, lethal grace that spoke of years of intense martial training. He slashed at Izuku's midsection, a strike meant to draw blood and incapacitate. Izuku's mind raced. He's fast. His center of gravity is perfect. This isn't a street brawler. This is a highly trained assassin. But he's just a kid. What is going on in this place? Sasuke's kunai sliced through the air. Izuku sidestepped it effortlessly. Sasuke immediately pivoted, using his momentum to launch a spinning back kick aimed at Izuku's head. Izuku ducked under the kick, the breeze from the strike ruffling his green hair. Please stop. If I fight back, I might hurt you. Arrogant, Sasuke spat, his eyes flashing with irritation. He unleashed a flurry of strikes, slashes, jabs, and sweeping kicks. Izuku didn't throw a single punch. He engaged in a pure evasion dance. He slipped under a slash, swayed back from a thrust, and parried a kick with the flat, armored back of his gauntlet. The clash of Sasuke's shin against Izuku's mid-gauntlet produced a dull, heavy thud. Sasuke winced slightly, stepping back. Kicking the stranger's arm felt like kicking a solid steel beam. Damn it, Sasuke muttered, reaching into his pouch. Sasuke, wait! A voice yelled from above. A blur of orange dropped from the canopy. Naruto slammed into the ground between them, kicking up a cloud of dust. He pointed a finger dramatically at Izuku. Hey, weird green guy! Naruto shouted. Nobody picks on Sasuke but me. If you want to fight, you gotta go through the future Hokage. Izuku stared at the blonde boy. He had strange, whisker-like marks on his cheeks. Hokage? I don't know what that is. I'm just trying to figure out where I am. Excuses are for the weak. Naruto yelled, crossing his fingers in a cross shape. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Poof! 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 Thick clouds of white smoke erupted around Naruto. As the smoke cleared, Izuku's jaw dropped. 10 identical copies of the blonde boy stood in a circle, all grinning fiercely. A cloning quirk. Izuku's inner fanba flared up, his mind instantly analyzing the situation despite the danger. Wait, ectoplasm's clones are made of a viscous ectoplasm. Twice clones require precise measurements, and have a muddy consistency when damaged. But these, the energy displacement is identical. They cast individual shadows. They possess physical mass. It's a perfect cellular replication quirk. The stamina required for that is insane. Get him! The original Naruto yelled. All 10 clones charged at Izuku simultaneously, a chaotic, brawling wave of fists and feet. I really don't want to hurt you kids! Izuku yelled. He needed to end this without causing injury. He couldn't strike them. His base strength, even at 5%, could break their ribs. He needed restraint. Black Whip! Izuku raised his hands. 10 tendrils of dark, pulsing energy shot out from his gloves. They moved like living vipers, far faster than the charging clones. The dark whip slashed out, wrapping securely but gently around the torsos of the Naruto clones, lifting them clean off their feet. Whoa! What the heck is this? One clone yelled, struggling against the dark energy. It's sticky! Let me go! Another shouted. Izuku held them suspended in the air. Listen to me. I am a hero. I am not an enemy. Please, just calm down. I ain't done yet. One of the clones yelled, and bit down hard on the black whip tendril. The disruption of energy caused the clone to destabilize. With a loud poof, the clone vanished into a cloud of white smoke. Izuku flinched in shock, dropping the other 9 clones. As they hit the ground, they too popped into smoke. Poof. 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 Izuku stared at his empty black whips. They popped? They dissipated into vapor? That's physically impossible unless the mass is temporarily converted from ambient energy. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Izuku snapped his head up. Sasuke was standing 10 feet away, his hands blurring through complex shapes. Sasuke inhaled deeply, his chest expanding, and then exhaled a massive, roaring sphere of superheated fire directly at Izuku. He's breathing fire? 2 quirks? No, he threw weapons earlier. Maybe his quirk is pyrokinesis and he supplements it with gear? The fireball was huge, easily 10 feet in diameter, and it was hot enough to singe the grass beneath it. Izuku couldn't dodge. The blast radius would catch the surrounding trees and potentially start a forest fire. He had to disperse it. Izuku drew his right arm back, green lightning surging to 15%. He focused the power into his fingers, pressing his thumb against his middle finger. Delaware smash! He flicked his fingers. The sheer concussive force of the air pressure generated by the flick was like a bomb going off. A localized hurricane exploded from Izuku's hand. The shockwave slammed into the fireball, completely obliterating the flames, shredding the fire into harmless wisps of steam and smoke. The residual wind force hit Sasuke, blowing the young Uchiha off his feet and sending him tumbling backward into the dirt. Naruto, who had been charging up for another attack, froze, his mouth hanging open. He looked at the smoking trench in the ground where his teammate's fireball had been, then looked at the green-haired boy who was still standing in the exact same spot, his fingers slightly smoking. He blew it away. Naruto whispered. With his fingers? Sasuke sat up, coughing, his eyes wide with disbelief. What kind of jutsu is that? He didn't use wind nature chakra. He didn't use any chakra. I didn't see him weave a single hand sign. He just flicked the air. Izuku lowered his hand, his chest heaving slightly. Are you done? Please. I'm begging you. Just point me toward the police. You're quite loud for a spy. The voice came from directly behind Izuku, right beside his left ear. It was calm, casual, and utterly lethal. Izuku's danger sense didn't just hum, it exploded. It felt like a cold spike of ice being driven into his spine. Total, unavoidable, imminent death. He hadn't seen the man move. He hadn't heard a footstep. Izuku froze. He could feel the cold, sharpened edge of a kunai resting gently against the skin of his throat, right above the collar of his hero costume. Hatake Kakashi stood behind him, his single visible eye cold and calculating. Sensei! Sakura yelled, dropping down from the trees to join Naruto and Sasuke. Sensei, Izuku thought, his mind racing. The adult in charge. He moved so fast. I didn't even track him. He bypassed my reaction time entirely. If I move, he will slice my carotid artery. This man is a killer. Kakashi kept the blade steady. He was deeply unnerved, though he didn't show it. When he had body flickered behind the boy, he had expected the boy to panic, to try and counter. But the boy had frozen instantly, recognizing his absolute disadvantage. That spoke of combat experience. But what Kakashi found most terrifying was what he had seen right before he intervened. Underneath the cover of his headband, Kakashi's left eye was closed. But beneath the eyelid, the Sharingan was active. He had activated it to analyze the boy's jutsu when he blew away Sasuke's fireball. The Sharingan could see chakra. It could see the intricate network of tenketsu, the flow of energy, the buildup of elemental nature. When the boy had flicked his fingers, Kakashi had looked closely. And he had seen nothing. No chakra pathways. No tenketsu points. The boy's internal biology was devoid of the energy that powered every living creature on this continent. It was like looking at a rock, or a piece of dead wood. Yet the boy's muscles had coiled with an impossible, terrifying kinetic energy. The green lightning wasn't lightning nature chakra. It was a physical byproduct of intense biological pressure, like static electricity on a godlike scale. Who are you? Kakashi thought. You have no chakra, yet you produce power that rivals a Jonin's destructive output. You're an anomaly. Don't move, Kakashi commanded softly, his voice carrying the quiet authority of an executioner. State your name, your village of origin, and your mission. Lie to me, and you won't speak again. Izuku slowly, very carefully, raised both his hands into the air, surrendering completely. The green lightning faded, the ambient heat of his body cooling down. He let out a long, shuddering breath, trying to slow his racing heart. My name is Izuku Midoriya, he said, his voice surprisingly steady despite the blade at his throat. He remembered the advice Aizawa had given him about dealing with hostile underground vigilantes. De-escalate. Be honest. Do not present a threat. I don't have a village. I'm from the city of Muzurifu. I don't have a mission. I was fighting a villain, and his spatial quirk malfunctioned. It dropped me out of the sky into this forest. Kakashi narrowed his eye. Muzutafu? I've never heard of it. And you keep using that word. Quirk. What is a quirk? Is it a Kekii Genkai? A bloodline limit? I don't know what a Kekii Genkai is, Izuku said honestly. A quirk is a meta ability. A genetic power. 80% of the world has one. Look, sir, there has been a massive misunderstanding. Your students attacked me, and I only defended myself. I haven't hurt anyone. I don't want to fight you. Kakashi pressed the blade a millimeter deeper. Not enough to break the skin, but enough to make the threat absolute. You possess incredible physical strength and strange energy constructs, yet you claim to be ignorant of shinobi arts. You expect me to believe you're a civilian caught in an accident? I'm not a civilian, Izuku corrected softly. I'm a hero. A pro-hero in training. Kakashi paused. A hero? You mean a samurai? A mercenary? No, Izuku said, confusion lacing his tone. A hero. Someone who saves people. Someone who protects the innocent. Izuku shifted his eyes slightly, trying to catch a glimpse of the man holding him captive. Sir, I don't know what a shinobi is. I don't know where I am. But I can tell you're a seasoned fighter. If you are the authority here, I surrender to your custody. Just, please put the knife away. I won't run. Kakashi studied the boy. The Sharingan, still active beneath his closed eye, searched the boy's micro-expressions. The boy's pulse was rapid, but steady. His muscles were relaxed, showing true surrender. There was fear in his eyes, but it wasn't the fear of a caught spy. It was the confusion of someone who genuinely had no idea what was happening. And then there was the boy's aura. Despite lacking chakra, there was a profound, overwhelming earnestness radiating from him. Kakashi slowly lowered the kunai, stepping back but keeping himself between Izuku and his genin. Sensei, what are you doing? Sasuke demanded, stepping forward, his Sharingan blazing red in his own eyes. He's dangerous. He blew my jutsu away with a finger. Stand down, Sasuke, Kakashi ordered, his tone leaving no room for argument. He surrendered. And he's right. He didn't launch a single offensive strike against you or Naruto. He only evaded and deflected. But he's weird. Naruto yelled, pointing again. And he's got green hair. Quiet, Naruto, Kakashi sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. He looked back at Izuku. The boy was rubbing his throat where the cold steel had rested, looking at Team 7 with wide, observant eyes. He wears a costume, Kakashi thought. He uses code words like quirk and villain. He claims his profession is hero. And he has no chakra network. Kakashi pulled his headband down, covering his left eye once more. The lethal intensity vanished from his posture, replaced by his usual, slouching demeanor. Well, Izuku Midoriya, Kakashi said lazily, sliding his kunai back into its pouch. It seems we have a bit of a diplomatic anomaly on our hands. You claim you fell from the sky due to a quirk accident. Yes, sir, Izuku nodded earnestly. And you have no idea where you are. No, sir. Kakashi gave a close-eyed smile that didn't quite reach the rest of his face. Congratulations. You've landed in the land of fire. Specifically, the forests bordering Kanehigakure, the Hidden Leaf Village. I am Kakashi Hataki, a jonin of the leaf. Izuku processed the words. Hidden Leaf Village. Jonin. Land of fire. None of it matched any geographical data he possessed. The sinking feeling in his gut intensified. The villain's portal hadn't just moved him across the world. It had moved him out of his world entirely. Sir, Izuku asked quietly. In this land of fire, who is the number one pro-hero? Naruto burst out laughing. What are you talking about? There are no heroes here. We're ninja. The strongest person in the land is the Hokage, the leader of our village. Believe it. Izuku looked at the three teenagers. They wore open-toed sandals, carried lethal weapons in pouches strapped to their legs, and looked perfectly comfortable with the idea of killing, or being killed. They called themselves ninja. Izuku realized with a sickening clarity that he was no longer in a society governed by heroes, villains, laws, and quirks. He was standing in a world of soldiers, assassins, and absolute survival. "I see," Izuku murmured, his hands curling into fists at his sides, not in anger, but in resolution. He was terrified, utterly isolated from everything he knew. But he was Izuku Midoriya. He was the successor of One for All. He looked Kakashi in the eye. "Take me to your Hokage." Kakashi studied the boy's sudden shift in demeanor. The confusion was gone, replaced by a steely, unshakable resolve. Kakashi felt a strange shiver run down his spine. "Very well," Kakashi said. "But you are coming as my prisoner. You will walk in the center of formation. If you attempt to flee, or if you power up that green lightning again, I will not hesitate to paralyze you. Am I understood?" "Understood," Izuku nodded. "Let's move out," Kakashi ordered his team. As they fell into formation around him, Izuku looked up at the sky. It was the same blue sky he knew, but the sun shone on a different world. He didn't know how he was going to get home. He didn't know how he was going to survive in a world of ninja. But as he walked forward, surrounded by child soldiers, Izuku made a silent vow. Whether they had quirks or jutsu, whether they called themselves ninja or civilians, people were still people. And where there were people, there was a need for someone to save them. The sky had fallen on the hidden leaf, and Izuku Midoriya was going to make sure he stood tall enough to catch it. The walk to the Hidden Leaf village took a little over an hour. For Izuku Midoriya, it felt like a march across centuries. He remained in the center of the diamond formation, exactly as Kakashi had ordered. Sasuke took the vanguard, moving with a silent, brooding intensity, his dark eyes constantly scanning the tree line. Sakura trailed behind Izuku, her kunai still gripped tightly in her hand, casting him nervous, bewildered glances. Naruto brought up the rear, though he clearly hated being stuck in the back. The blonde boy spent the entire trek practically stepping on Izuku's heels, leaning around to stare at his green hair, his iron-soled boots, and the metallic mid-gauntlets on his arms. Kakashi moved through the branches above, a phantom shadow that Izuku could only track thanks to the low, constant hum of danger sense. Izuku used the time to observe. His mind, trained by years of dissecting hero quirks and combat tactics, was running in overdrive to stave off the creeping, icy dread of his situation. He took in the towering trees, the massive ferns, the distinct lack of any modern infrastructure. There were no power lines cutting through the forest canopy. No distant roar of airplanes. No faint smell of exhaust fumes or ozone. The air was incredibly rich, thick with the scent of pine, damp earth, and blooming wildflowers. If I'm still on Earth, this has to be a highly isolated, uncontacted region, Izuku thought, his lips moving silently in his trademark muttering. But that doesn't explain their abilities. The fire-breathing, the perfect cellular clones. The older man's speed. They called it jutsu. And chakra. In pre-quirk fictional media, chakra was a conceptual spiritual energy. Do they have a localized, collective quirk mutation that mimics magic? Or is this actually a different dimensional plane with entirely different laws of physics? "Hey, weirdo," Naruto whispered loudly from behind him, unable to contain himself any longer. "Why are you mumbling like that? Are you casting a hex? Is it a curse? Do you eat bugs?" "Naruto," Kakashi's voice floated down from the leaves, smooth but carrying a sharp edge of warning. "Maintain noise discipline." "But sensei," Naruto whined, throwing his arms behind his head. "He's just walking. And he's got all this cool metal stuff on. I want to know what it does." "It's support gear," Izuku answered softly, looking over his shoulder. He decided that answering questions truthfully was his best strategy for proving he wasn't a threat. "To protect my body from the recoil of my abilities," Sasuke scoffed from the front, not turning around. "If your body can't even handle your own jutsu, you're a third-rate fighter. A true shinobi hones their physical vessel to match their chakra." Izuku frowned, looking at Sasuke's back. "Shinobi. Ninja. They keep using that word. But they're just kids. They look like they should be in their first year of high school, or even middle school." The dense forest began to thin, the trees giving way to a massive clearing. As they stepped out of the tree line, Izuku's breath hitched in his throat. He stopped dead in his tracks, staring. Rising before him was a wall of staggering proportions. It was constructed of massive, tightly fitted timber and stone, curving away into the distance to encircle a sprawling settlement. But it wasn't the wall that captured his awe. It was the mountain behind it. Carved into the sheer, towering face of the rock were 4 colossal faces. They were monumental, gazing down over the village with stern, watchful eyes. Whoa! Izuku breathed, momentarily forgetting his captive status. It's like Mount Rushmore, but for local leaders? Those are the Hokage, Sakura said, stepping up beside him, a hint of fierce pride momentarily overriding her suspicion of the stranger. The greatest shinobi in the history of the Leaf Village. The first, second, third, and fourth. And one day, Naruto yelled, pointing a thumb at his own chest, a massive grin splitting his whisker-marked face. My face is gonna be right up there next to the fourth. I'm gonna be the greatest Hokage ever, believe it! And then everyone in the village will have to stop disrespecting me. Izuku looked at Naruto. Beneath the loud, boastful exterior, Izuku's deep empathy picked up on something profound. The way Naruto said disrespecting me? It wasn't just a kid wanting attention. It was the desperate, hollow ache of someone who had been deeply marginalized. Izuku knew that ache intimately. It was the same ache of a quirkless boy standing in a playground, being told to take a swan dive off the roof. Before Izuku could respond, Kakashi dropped from the trees, landing silently beside them. Let's move. We're approaching the gates. They walked up the wide dirt road leading to massive, open green doors. 2 men in green flak jackets sat at a booth nearby. As Kakashi approached, they immediately stood up, their relaxed postures stiffening into professional attention. Kakashi-san, one of the guards, a man with a bandage across the bridge of his nose, said, his eyes immediately locking onto Izuku. You're back early. And who is this? A complication, Kotetsu, Kakashi sighed, his visible eye crinkling into a tired smile. We found him at the epicenter of a localized concussive event in Sector 4. He possesses unknown abilities and 0 identification. I need to take him directly to the Hokage. Kotetsu and his partner, Izumo, looked Izuku up and down. Their eyes lingered on his hero costume, the thick metal boots, and the scars crisscrossing Izuku's hands and arms, the permanent reminders of his battles with Todoroki, Muscular, and Shigaraki. He looks like a kid, but those scars say otherwise, Izumo noted grimly, pulling out a clipboard. Want us to restrain him? No, Kakashi said, a subtle shift in his tone indicating the matter was not up for debate. He surrendered peacefully. But I will need a temporary detainment pass. As the paperwork was filled out, Izuku looked past the gates. The architecture of the Hidden Leaf Village was a dizzying blend of eras. There were wooden buildings with traditional tiled roofs that belonged in the Edo period, yet they were strung with utility wires. He saw utility poles, but no cars. The streets were bustling with people, civilians in simple kimono and yukata, and dozens of people moving with purposeful strides wearing the same green flak jackets and headbands as Kakashi. It was a military state. A hidden, armed encampment masquerading as a bustling town. All right, Izuku Midoriya, Kakashi said, pocketing the stamped pass. First stop is the hospital. The hospital? Izuku asked, his pulse jumping. I told you I'm not hurt. My quirk. Standard procedure for unknown detainees, Kakashi interrupted smoothly. We need to ensure you aren't carrying foreign contagions, poisons, or parasitic summons. And we need to assess your chakra coils. Move. The Konoha General Hospital smelled sharply of antiseptic and dried herbs. Izuku was escorted down a series of sterile, white-tiled hallways to a secure diagnostic room deep in the basement levels. The room was devoid of typical medical equipment like MRI machines or X-rays. Instead, the floor and walls were painted with complex, swirling geometric patterns, Fuinjutsu ceiling arrays. Kakashi remained leaning against the doorframe, his orange book out again, though Izuku knew the man wasn't reading. Team 7 had been dismissed, much to Naruto's vocal dismay. A severe-looking woman in a white coat entered the room. Her hair was pulled back into a tight bun, and her eyes were sharp and clinical. Kakashi, she nodded curtly. This is the anomaly? Be my guest, Dr. Kurub. Kakashi gestured with his book. Dr. Kurub approached Izuku. Sit on the examination table. Remove your upper garments. Izuku swallowed, complying. He unzipped his dark green hero costume to his waist, letting the top half hang from his belt, and pulled off his black undershirt. Dr. Kurb paused, her professional detachment slipping for a fraction of a second. Kakashi, too, lowered his book slightly. Izuku's torso was a canvas of survival. His musculature was hyperdeveloped, carved from years of literally cleaning beaches of industrial trash and hauling massive weights. But it was the damage that caught their attention. His right arm was heavily, grotesquely scarred, the skin twisted and discolored from where his bones had been repeatedly shattered into powder by the force of one for all before he learned shoot style. There were burn marks on his shoulders, deep laceration scars across his ribs, and a jagged puncture scar near his hip. "You've seen a war zone," Dr. Kurb murmured, her hands glowing with a soft, ethereal green light. Mystical palm jutsu, Izuku thought, his eyes widening. Bioluminescence? No, it's that chakra energy again. Is it cellular regeneration acceleration? I'm going to conduct a diagnostic scan of your chakra pathways, Kurb instructed, placing her glowing hands flat against Izuku's chest, right over his heart. Do not attempt to mold chakra, or it will cause a feedback loop. I don't have chakra, Izuku reminded her politely. Everyone has chakra, boy. Even a civilian has a rudimentary coil system. It is the life force that connects physical and spiritual energy. To lack it completely means you would be dead. She closed her eyes, pushing her green energy into his body. Izuku felt a strange, warm tingling sensation seep through his skin. It felt like warm water flowing over his muscles, searching for a drain. But there was no drain. Suddenly Dr. Kurb gasped. Her eyes snapped open, wide with shock, and she stumbled backward, dropping her jutsu. She stared at her hands, then up at Izuku's chest, her face pale. What is it, doctor? Kakashi asked, his posture straightening instantly. It's a void, she stammered, pointing a trembling finger at Izuku. I pushed my chakra in to illuminate his coils. But there is nothing there. No pathways. No tenketsu points. No inner gates. It is absolute, biological silence. He is a breathing corpse. I told you, Izuku said, feeling slightly defensive. He hated being treated like a freak. It brought back too many memories of being diagnosed as quirkless. My power isn't spiritual. It's entirely biological. It's a genetic mutation called a quirk. That's impossible, Kurb whispered, turning to Kakashi. Even Rock Lee, who cannot mold chakra for jutsu, has a physical network of pathways. This boy has nothing. Yet his physical vitality, Kakashi, his cellular density is terrifying. His muscle fibers are woven like steel cables. His bone density is 3 times that of a normal human. If I didn't see him breathing, I would classify him as a newly discovered species of summon beast. Kakashi's visible eye narrowed. He looked at Izuku, who was currently rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. A physical god with no spirit, Kakashi murmured softly. He snapped his book shut. Thank you, doctor. That will be all. Put your shirt back on, Midoriya. We have an appointment. The torture and interrogation facility of the Hidden Leaf was a place designed to break the human mind. The walls were thick, damp stone that absorbed sound, leaving the air heavy and oppressive. The lighting was harsh, casting long, menacing shadows. Izuku sat in a heavy iron chair bolted to the floor in the center of a small, windowless room. He was not handcuffed, a small mercy Kakashi had insisted upon, but the atmosphere was suffocating. Across the metal table sat 2 men. One was a massive, imposing figure wearing a dark trench coat and a Hittite shaped like a bandana. His face was a road map of brutal, horrific scars. His eyes were cold, dead, and analyzed Izuku like a butcher analyzing a slab of meat. This was Ibiki Marino. The other man had long, pale blonde hair tied back in a ponytail, and wore a standard Jonin flak jacket. He had a calmer, more refined presence, but his pale blue eyes felt invasive, as if they were already peeling back the layers of Izuku's skull. This was Inoichi Yamanaka. Kakashi stood in the corner of the room, leaning against the cold stone wall, silent and watchful. Izuku Midoriya. Ibiki's voice was a low, gravelly rumble that seemed to vibrate in Izuku's chest. Age 15. Origin Muzutafu. No known affiliations. You claim to have been transported here by an enemy combatant's quirk. Yes, sir, Izuku said, keeping his back straight and his voice steady. He was terrified, yes, but he had stood before the symbol of all evil, all for one. He had looked into the decaying eyes of Tamura Shigaraki. A scary man with scars was intimidating, but it was not enough to break the successor of One for All. Ibiki leaned forward, resting his massive forearms on the table. You expect us to believe that you fell from the sky, possessing strength capable of shattering our strongest fire jutsu with a flick of your finger, and you are just a lost child. Are you a weapon developed by the village hidden in the clouds? A bioengineered asset of Orochimaru? I don't know who Orochimaru is, Izuku replied earnestly, looking Ibiki directly in the eye. And I'm not a weapon. I am a hero in training from Yue High School. I save people. That is my only purpose. Ibiki stared at him for a long, agonizing minute. He projected killing intent, a heavy, suffocating aura designed to make the target sweat, shake, and crack. Izuku didn't blink. His danger sense was humming, but because Ibiki wasn't actively trying to murder him in that exact second, Izuku could compartmentalize the pressure. He breathed through it, his green eyes locked onto Ibiki's scarred visage with unwavering, pure honesty. Ibiki leaned back, a faint glimmer of surprise crossing his cold features. He glanced at Inoichi and gave a subtle nod. He's not breaking. His baseline psychological defenses are remarkably solid for a civilian, or he's a sleeper agent with a deeply implanted false persona. We do this the hard way. Inoichi stepped forward, pulling a chair out and sitting directly opposite Izuku. Midoriya, Inoichi said, his voice surprisingly gentle compared to Ibiki's. My name is Inoichi Yamanaka. I possess a specialized, let's use your word, quirk. I can enter the minds of others and view their memories. I am going to enter your mind now. If you resist, it will cause you immense psychological pain, and you will eventually lose. If you relax, it will be over in a moment, and we will know the truth. Izuku tensed. Mind reading? Like Shinso's brainwashing, but invasive? Wait, Izuku said, holding up a hand. You're going to look into my memories? All of them? Only the ones pertaining to your arrival and your origins, Inoichi assured him. I am a professional. Izuku hesitated. If this man looked into his mind, he would see everything. He would see All Might. He would see the secret of One for All, the transference of the quirk, the vestiges. He would see a world of 8 billion people with superpowers, skyscrapers, cell phones, and the internet. But Izuku also realized he had absolutely no choice. He had zero leverage. If he fought them, he would be labeled a hostile enemy of the state and hunted. He needed them to trust him if he ever wanted to get home. Okay, Izuku exhaled, lowering his hands. I won't fight you. But I have to warn you. My mind, it's a little crowded. Inoichi raised a brow. A split personality defense? Or layered genjutsu? I appreciate the warning. Relax your body. Focus on my eyes. Inoichi raised his hands, forming a square seal with his fingers. Mind-reading jutsu. Inoichi projected his spiritual energy, diving straight through Izuku's retinas and into the boy's consciousness. Usually, when Inoichi entered a mind, it was like stepping into a house. The memories were rooms, neatly organized or chaotically strewn about depending on the person's mental state. It was a localized, contained space. But the moment Inoichi breached Izuku Midoriya's consciousness, the house shattered. Inoichi wasn't in a room. He was falling through an infinite, swirling galaxy of raw, blinding colors. The sheer, overwhelming pressure of the space hit him like a physical blow. It wasn't the mind of a 15-year-old boy. It felt like the mind of a god. What is this? Inoichi panicked, his spiritual projection flailing in the void. Where are the memory files? Where is the ego? This space. It's impossibly vast. It's stockpiled with an eternity of kinetic energy. Suddenly, the swirling color solidified into a massive, dark room illuminated only by the ethereal glow of glowing, colorful chairs. Inoichi froze. He was not alone in this mind. Standing in the void were massive, shadowy figures. They were towering, their forms shifting like smoke and starlight. One figure, a massive, muscular man with goggles, stepped forward. He radiated a raw, earthy power. Daigoro Banjo. Hey! The massive figure boomed, his voice echoing like thunder across the mental void. You lost, pal? This ain't a public park. Nobody gets to rummage through the ninth's head without an invitation. Another figure, a regal, slender man with piercing eyes, stepped beside him. The second user. A psychic intrusion. How archaic. The boy allowed you in, but we do not. And then, the space seemed to warp. A brilliant, golden light erupted from the deepest part of the void. A figure materialized, not a shadow, but a glowing, heroic silhouette. A man with two golden tufts of hair standing up like rabbit ears. All might. The combined weight of their wills, the stockpiled, crystallized souls of 8 generations of heroes, infused with the ultimate power of one for all, focused entirely on Inoichi Yamanaka. It was too much. It was 1,000 times more potent than any killing intent Inoichi had ever faced. It was the weight of destiny itself. In the physical world, less than 3 seconds had passed. Suddenly Inoichi screamed. He threw himself backward, his chair tipping over and crashing against the stone floor. He scrambled backward until his back hit the wall, his chest heaving, his pale blue eyes dilated in sheer, absolute terror. Sweat poured down his face, and his hands trembled violently. Inoichi! Ibiki barked, standing up instantly, his hand dropping to his weapon's pouch. Kakashi moved from the wall, his Sharingan blazing to life beneath his eyelid, though he didn't uncover it yet. Izuku blinked, looking down at the gasping man. Are you okay? I'm sorry, I tried to warn you. The previous users are very protective of the core. What did he do to you? Ibiki demanded, glaring at Izuku. He didn't do anything, Inoichi gasped, clutching his head, fighting off a monstrous migraine. He didn't attack me. I broke contact. Inoichi looked up at Izuku, not with suspicion, but with profound awe and terror. Ibiki, Inoichi whispered, his voice shaking. He's telling the truth. Every word of it. He is from another world. A world of metal cities and gods walking among men. Inoichi swallowed hard, pulling himself to his feet, leaning heavily against the table. But that's not the scariest part. He has no chakra, but he is not empty. There are ghosts inside him, Ibiki, ancient, and possibly powerful souls. They live inside his power. This boy, he is carrying the weight of a sun inside a mortal body. Silence fell over the interrogation room, heavy and absolute. Kakashi stared at Izuku, his visible eye wide. Ibiki's scowl deepened, but the hostility had vanished, replaced by profound wariness. Izuku simply sat there, looking incredibly uncomfortable. So, do I get to meet the Hokage now? The Hokage's office was located at the highest point of the administrative building, offering a sweeping, panoramic view of the Hidden Leaf Village. The late afternoon sun cast long, golden shadows across the wooden rooftops, painting the Hokage monument in hues of fiery orange. Izuku stood in the center of the plush, circular office. The smell of rich, cherrywood tobacco smoke hung in the air. Sitting behind a massive wooden desk, piled dangerously high with scrolls and paperwork, was an old man. He wore the traditional white and red robes of the Hokage, a wide-brimmed hat with the kanji for fire resting on his desk. His face was deeply lined with age, a small goatee hanging from his chin. He puffed slowly on a long pipe. This was Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, the god of shinobi. Despite his frail appearance, Izuku's danger sense was giving off a very strange reading. The man didn't feel hostile. In fact, he felt remarkably warm, like a grandfather. But beneath that warmth was an ocean of dormant, lethal power. It was like standing in front of a sleeping dragon. Kakashi stood to Izuku's right. Inoichi, still looking slightly pale, stood to his left. They had just finished giving their full, unfiltered reports. Hiruzen took the pipe from his mouth, exhaling a thin stream of gray smoke. He looked at Izuku with eyes that had seen decades of war, suffering, and political betrayal. Yet when he looked at the boy, he saw only a desperate, confused teenager with an unnervingly bright spirit. A world where 80% of the population possesses a unique, biological mutation, Hiruzen mused, his voice raspy but authoritative. Where peace is maintained not by hidden blades and espionage, but by pro-heroes who operate in the public eye, regulated by a central government, focusing on rescue and apprehension rather than assassination. Hiruzen chuckled softly, a dry, wheezing sound. It sounds like a genjutsu born of a childish dream. Yet, Inoichi's mind arts do not lie, and Dr. Kurib's physical assessment confirms your biology is alien to our reality. It's not a dream, sir, Izuku said politely. It's my home. And I need to get back. My mother is waiting for me. My teachers, my friends, the villains won't wait. I have a duty to my world. Hiruzen nodded slowly. I understand the pull of duty, Izuku. But we must face the reality of your current coordinates. You are in the elemental nations. We do not have quirks. We do not have the technology of your world. Space-time jutsu is incredibly rare, highly dangerous, and the only man in this village who might even begin to comprehend the mathematics of returning you to a different dimension is currently wandering the continent. Izuku felt a cold knot form in his stomach. So, you can't send me back? Not today, Hiruzen said gently. Not tomorrow. Perhaps not for a year, or more. Returning you will require vast amounts of research, chakra manipulation, and theoretical sealing formulas. Izuku looked down at his scarred hands. A year? What would happen to Yue in a year? What would Shigaraki do? The panic threatened to rise again, but Izuku forced it down. He breathed in. He breathed out. He had to survive here first. He had to be a hero here. I see, Izuku said softly. He looked back up at the Hokage. Then, what happens to me now? Your guards, your interrogators, they all look at me like I'm a threat. This is a military village, isn't it? Your soldiers. Hiruzen's eyes softened with a sad, ancient weariness. We are shinobi, Izuku. Ninja. Our village is a military power contracted by the Land of Fire. We take missions. We protect our borders. We gather intelligence. And yes, when the mission requires it, we eliminate threats to our nation's security. Izuku's fist clenched at his sides. Kakashi-sensei's team. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura. They are my age. Maybe younger. And you send them to fight? To kill? Kakashi shifted uncomfortably, but remained silent. It is the way of our world, Hiruzen said softly. The academy trains them from childhood. It is a harsh world, Izuku. A world of constant conflict. If we do not train our youth to defend themselves and their home, our enemies will slaughter them without hesitation. But their children? Izuku's voice rose, the passion that had made him the successor of One for All flaring to life. In my world, we have rules. We have laws. Heroes don't kill unless it is the absolute, most desperate last resort. We apprehend. We save. We don't train 12-year-olds to slit throats in the dark. And what happens when your enemies do not care for your rules? Hiruzen challenged gently. What happens when a man comes to your village with the sole intent of burning it to the ground, slaughtering everyone you love? Do you apprehend him with gentle hands while he murders your family? Izuku flinched, the image of All for One floating into his mind. I stop him. With whatever force is necessary to save the innocent. Then we are not so different, Hiruzen pointed out. The shinobi of the leaf abide by the will of fire. We fight to protect the king, the next generation. We stain our hands in the shadows so that our children may eventually live in the light. It is a grim burden, but it is necessary. Izuku looked at the old man. He saw the genuine sorrow in Hiruzen's eyes. This wasn't an evil dictator. This was a man trapped by the brutal, bloody mechanics of his reality. I can't accept that, Izuku said firmly, his green eyes burning with an emerald fire. I understand that your world is different. But I am not a shinobi. I am a hero. I will not be an assassin for you. I will not kill on command. Kakashi tensed, expecting the Hokage to take offense. To openly defy the leader of a hidden village was usually a death sentence. Instead, Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled. It was a genuine, warm smile. He looked at the boy and saw flashes of a golden-haired pupil who had died too young, and a loud, boisterous founder who had believed in impossible peace. I would not ask you to, Izuku, Hiruzen said. In fact, your unique morality is precisely why I am going to make you an offer. Hiruzen stood up, walking around his desk. He looked out the massive window at the village below. "You are an anomaly," Hiruzen stated, his tone turning clinical. "A boy with the physical power of a tailed beast, no chakra network, and an immunity to standard sensing techniques. If you leave this village and attempt to survive on your own, you will be hunted. The hidden stone will try to conscript you. The hidden cloud will try to breed you to steal your bloodline. Rogue Missing Neen will try to dissect you to discover the secret of your strength. You would not survive a month in the wild without causing a massive international incident." Izuku swallowed hard. The logic was undeniable. He was a sitting duck without geographical or political knowledge. "You need a sanctuary," Hiruzen continued, turning back to him. "You need food, shelter, and access to our sealed archives and researchers to find your way home. I will provide all of this for you. I will grant you political asylum in the Hidden Leaf Village. I will assign you an apartment, a stipend, and access to our libraries. And in exchange?" Izuku asked, his tactical mind catching up. "A leader doesn't give away state secrets and resources for free." "What do you want from me?" "I want your strength," Hiruzen said plainly. "In exactly 1 month, the Hidden Leaf will host the Chunin exams. It is an international event where genin from allied villages come to compete for promotion. It is also a political powder keg. It is a display of military might to secure civilian contracts." Hiruzen walked back to his desk, leaning against it. "I have a bad feeling about these exams, Izuku. Shadows are moving on the borders. I cannot ask Kakashi or my Jonin to participate, as the exams are strictly for genin. But you are an unknown variable. A wild card. You want me to enter the exams?" Izuku asked, surprised. "I am officially granting you the rank of honorary genin of the Hidden Leaf," Hiruzen declared. "You will be assigned as a special auxiliary to Team 7. You will train with Kakashi, Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto. During the exams, you will act as their 4th member, operating under the explicit parameters of protection." Hiruzen's eyes locked onto Izuku's. "I am not asking you to be an assassin, Izuku Midoriya. I am asking you to be a hero. I want you to protect my genin. I want you to ensure that Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura survive whatever trials or treachery occur in those exams. You do this for me, and Konoha will move heaven and earth to find a way to return you to your mother." Izuku stood frozen in the center of the room. He looked at Inoichi, who nodded respectfully. He looked at Kakashi, whose visible eye was calculating, assessing the new dynamic of his team. He looked at his scarred hands. He was trapped in a world of killers. A world that trained children to die for their country. It was everything his heroic ideology stood against. But if he walked away, he was abandoning children to the meat grinder. Naruto, who just wanted to be respected. Sakura, who seemed entirely out of her depth. Sasuke, who carried a darkness in his eyes that reminded Izuku of Todoroki before the sports festival. A hero saves everyone. Izuku looked up, meeting the gaze of the god of shinobi. He didn't bow like a subordinate ninja. He stood tall, crossing his arm over his chest, his fist resting over his heart in a perfect Yui salute. "I accept your terms, Lord Hokage," Izuku said, his voice ringing with absolute conviction. "I will be the auxiliary for Team 7. I will protect them with my life. But know this, I am bringing my rules with me. I will not kill. And if I see someone who needs saving, whether they wear a leaf headband or an enemy's, I will save them." Hiruzen Sarutobi's eyes crinkled with genuine amusement and deep respect. "Welcome to the Hidden Leaf, Deku," the Hokage said. "Kakashi, take him to his quarters. Training begins tomorrow." "Yes, Lord Hokage," Kakashi bowed. As Izuku turned to leave the office, stepping out into the hallway of the shinobi administration, he felt the heavy weight of reality settle onto his shoulders. He was alone. He was alienated, but as he looked out the window at the setting sun, painting the foreign sky in shades of crimson and gold, he felt the embers of one for all hum warmly in his chest. He was Deku. He was the 9th user. And he was going to show the shinobi world what a true hero looked like. The morning sun bled through the thin, paper-paned windows of the modest apartment, casting elongated, rectangular shadows across the tatami mats. Izuku Midoriya was already awake. In truth, he hadn't slept much at all. He sat cross-legged in the center of the small, sparsely furnished room the third Hokage had assigned him, located in a quiet residential sector of the Hidden Leaf Village. The silence of the dawn was profound, broken only by the distant, rhythmic sweeping of a broom on the dirt street outside and the occasional chirp of a bird. There were no garbage trucks grinding their gears, no distant sirens of police cars or hero agencies mobilizing for the morning patrol. It was peaceful. It was terrifying. Spread out on the low wooden table before him were the disassembled pieces of his hero costume. He had spent the last 3 hours meticulously cleaning the grime of the spatial portal and the forest from the dark green fabric. He checked the structural integrity of his iron-soled boots, wiping the dirt from the dense metallic alloy. He inspected the mid-gauntlets Melissa's shield had designed for him, ensuring the brace mechanisms hadn't been warped by his brief skirmish with Sasuke and Naruto yesterday. Everything was functional. But for how long? Izuku sighed, picking up a standard, blank scroll and a brush pen Kakashi had provided him the night before. He didn't have his signature notebooks. Those were lost somewhere in the spatial void or sitting on his desk back at UA Heights Alliance. So, he had to make do. He unrolled the parchment, dipping the brush into the inkwell. He began to write, translating his hyperactive thoughts into neat, structured rows of Japanese text. Observation Log 1. The Shinobi Paradigm, and Chakra Biology. 1. The locals possess a universal energy source called chakra. Dr. Kurb described it as a mixture of physical stamina and spiritual energy. It flows through a coil network similar to a circulatory system. 2. They utilize this energy to perform jutsu, techniques that range from elemental manipulation, Sasuke's fire breath, to physical replication, Naruto's clones. Functionally, these act exactly like quirks, but they are not genetic mutations restricted to a single ability. They are learned skills, limited only by the user's chakra capacity and elemental affinity. 3. My biology is entirely devoid of this network. I am essentially a blank spot on their sensory radars. To them, I am the equivalent of a quirkless person in my world, yet I retain the stockpiled physical power of one for all. This grants me an absolute immunity to genjutsu, illusions that manipulate chakra flow to the brain, as explained by Kakashi. Izuku set the brush down, staring at the drying ink. His mind wandered back to his mother, to All Might, to Uraraka, Ida, and Bakugo. Were they looking for him? Did the villain confess what happened? No. I can't think about that right now. Panic won't help me survive. Izuku slapped his cheeks with both hands, the sharp stinging sensation grounding him in the present. The Hokage promised to look for a way home. My job right now is to protect Team 7 and gather information. I have to be a hero here. He quickly dressed, sliding his arms into the repaired green bodysuit. He strapped on his belt with his pouches, secured his mid-gauntlets over his forearms, and laced up his heavy, iron-soled boots. He pulled his cowl up so it rested comfortably around his neck. He looked at his reflection in the small mirror near the door. He didn't look like a ninja. He looked like Deku, and that was exactly who he needed to be. Training Ground 3 was a massive expanse of open grass bordered by dense forest, complete with 3 wooden stumps standing in the center. The morning dew was still heavy on the grass when Izuku arrived. He wasn't the first one there. Sitting against the middle wooden stump, his arms crossed and his head nodding in sleep, was Naruto. The blonde boy was snoring loudly, a small bubble of snot expanding and contracting with his breaths. Izuku smiled softly. He walked over, his heavy boots squelching slightly in the damp grass, and sat down a few feet away, pulling out his scroll to continue writing notes. About 20 minutes later, the rustle of leaves signaled the arrival of the others. Sakura walked into the clearing, rubbing her eyes, followed closely by Sasuke, who looked as brooding and untouchable as he had the day before. Sakura stopped, blinking in surprise as she saw Izuku sitting there. You're early. Wait, did Kakashi-sensei actually tell you to be here at 5 a.m. too? Good morning, Sakura-san, Izuku greeted with a polite bow of his head. Yes, he told me to meet the team here at dawn. Sasuke scoffed, leaning against a tree on the perimeter of the clearing, refusing to look at Izuku. He lied. Sensei is never on time. He tells us to come at dawn just to make us wait for hours. It's a psychological test, or he's just a sadist. I haven't decided yet. Izuku blinked. A teacher who intentionally lies to his students about meeting times? That seems highly inefficient for training schedules. At Yui, Aizawa-sensei would expel us for being 30 seconds late, let alone hours. What's a Yui? Sakura asked, sitting down on the grass with a heavy sigh. And what kind of school threatens expulsion over 30 seconds? Yui High School. It's the top hero academy in my world, Izuku explained, a note of deep pride entering his voice. It's where we train to use our quirks to protect society. And Aizawa-sensei, well, he's strict because our jobs are life or death. 1 second of hesitation can cost a life. Naruto snorted, waking up. He wiped the drool from his chin and glared at Izuku. Hero Academy? Sounds lame. I bet your school doesn't have explosive tags or demon shuriken. You guys probably just rescue cats out of trees. Well, we do that too, Izuku admitted reasonably. Animal rescue is a fundamental aspect of community policing. Sasuke's dark eyes slid over to Izuku, narrowing with barely concealed disdain. You talk a lot about saving and protecting. But yesterday, you didn't throw a single offensive strike. You just dodged. In the shinobi world, defense without offense is just a delayed death. If you can't kill your enemy, you're useless. Izuku met Sasuke's gaze, his green eyes steady and unyielding. He recognized the look in Sasuke's eyes. It was the same intense, burning superiority complex that Katsuki Bakugo had wielded like a weapon for years. It was born of immense talent, immense expectation, and deep, unaddressed trauma. Neutralizing a threat doesn't have to mean killing them, Sasuke-kun, Izuku said calmly. If you kill every enemy, you're no better than the villains you fight. True strength is having the power to destroy, but the control to simply subdue. Childish idealism, Sasuke spat, turning his head away. Wait until a rogue ninja has a blade to your throat. Let's see if your subduing saves you then. Before Izuku could retort, a cloud of smoke erupted in the center of the clearing. Yo, Kakashi said cheerfully, holding his orange book in one hand, offering a lazy wave with the other. Sorry I'm late. I got lost on the path of life. Liar! Naruto and Sakura screamed in unison, pointing accusatory fingers at their teacher. Izuku just stared, furiously scribbling in his scroll. Instructor utilizes theatrical smoke bombs for basic entrances. Highly inefficient use of resources, but effective for psychological misdirection. Alright, settle down, Kakashi sighed, pocketing his book. He looked at the 4 teenagers. As the Hokage likely informed you yesterday, our team dynamic is temporarily changing. For the next month, leading up to the Chunin exams, Izuku Midoriya will be operating as an auxiliary member of Team 7. He is not a shinobi, but he is under Leaf Village protection. Kakashi's lone visible eye hardened, sweeping over Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke. This means he is a comrade. You will treat him with the same respect you treat each other. Understood? Yes, sensei, Sakura said obediently. Naruto grumbled but nodded. Sasuke simply glared. Now, Kakashi continued, turning his attention to Izuku. Before we begin our usual training, we have a tactical issue. Midoriya, you have 0 chakra. Our sensory types cannot track you, and you cannot perform ninjutsu or genjutsu. We know you possess extreme physical prowess, but we need to see it in a controlled environment to integrate you into our formations. Kakashi stepped back, gesturing to the open field. Therefore, we are going to start with a spar. Sasuke pushed off the tree instantly, his hand dropping to the pouch strapped to his thigh. I volunteer. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. I didn't say it would be against you, Sasuke. I want to fight him, sensei, Sasuke demanded, his voice cold and sharp. Yesterday, he caught me off guard. He used some sort of trick to blow away my jutsu. I want to see what he can do in a real fight face to face. Izuku sighed internally. He's exactly like Kaken. He needs to assert dominance to validate his own strength. Izuku stepped forward, unbuttoning the clasps on his mid-gauntlets, checking the tightness of the straps. I don't mind, Kakashi-sensei. A spar is a good way to establish baselines, but I request that we stick to taijutsu, hand-to-hand combat. I don't want to accidentally hurt him by misjudging the power of his elemental attacks against my pressure waves. Accidentally hurt me? Sasuke hissed, his pride stinging violently. Don't patronize me, outsider. Alright, Kakashi agreed, stepping back to act as referee. Taijutsu only. No lethal strikes. No weapons. The match goes until someone yields or I call it. Naruto, Sakura, pay attention. You might learn something. Naruto crossed his arms, pouting. Man, Sasuke always gets the fun stuff. Izuku and Sasuke walked to the center of the clearing, standing about 10 feet apart. Izuku settled into his standard stance, feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, hands raised defensively. He didn't activate one for all yet. He needed to read Sasuke's movements first. Sasuke, however, had no intention of holding back. He dropped into the Uchiha Interceptor stance. He closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, channeling chakra to his optic nerves. When he opened them, his irises bled from dark onyx to a brilliant, terrifying crimson. 2 black tomos spun lazily around each pupil. The Sharingan, Izuku noted, his analytical mind kicking into high gear. Kakashi-sensei has one too, though he keeps it covered. Dr. Kurb mentioned it's a dojutsu, an eye-based genetic trait. It grants enhanced kinetic tracking, chakra perception, and the ability to copy physical movements. It's essentially a combination of Eraserhead's visual acuity and Monoma's copy quirk, but limited to martial arts and energy manipulation. Don't hold back, hero, Sasuke taunted, the red eyes boring into Izuku. Because I'm going to take you apart. Begin! Kakashi called out. Sasuke exploded forward. Without the heavy metal boots Izuku wore, Sasuke was incredibly light on his feet. He crossed the distance in a blink, launching a blistering combination of strikes. A straight jab to the face, a hook to the ribs, a sweeping low kick designed to take out Izuku's knees. Izuku didn't attack. He slipped into absolute defense. His speed is incredible for his age without a physical enhancement quirk, Izuku thought, swaying his head back to let the jab pass by a millimeter. But his strikes are linear. He's relying heavily on his eyes to predict my reactions. Izuku brought his armored forearm down, blocking the hook to his ribs. The dense metal of his gauntlet clanged against Sasuke's knuckles. Sasuke winced slightly but immediately transitioned into the low kick. Izuku simply planted his iron-soled boot firmly into the dirt, tensing his leg muscles. Sasuke's shin slammed into Izuku's calf with a heavy thwack. It was like kicking a concrete pillar. TCH. Sasuke grunted, leaping back to create distance, his eyes spinning rapidly. He's not just wearing metal. His actual body is dense. My strikes are bouncing off his muscle tissue. I need to hit his joints or outmaneuver him. You're fast, Sasuke-kun, Izuku said politely. Your form is practically perfect. But you're telegraphing your weight distribution. You shift your hips half a second before you kick. Sasuke's face flushed with anger. Being critiqued by someone who hadn't even thrown a punch was infuriating. Shut up. Sasuke charged again, but this time, he altered his rhythm. He used the Sharingan to observe Izuku's defensive posture, analyzing the micro-twitches in Izuku's shoulders and legs. Sasuke feinted a high punch, dropping low to drive a palm strike toward Izuku's solar plexus. It was a perfect strike, perfectly timed. But Izuku wasn't a normal fighter. Danger sense hummed, a split-second premonition of the strike. Izuku didn't just block. He decided it was time to establish his baseline. Green lightning erupted around Izuku's body, crackling with the sound of thousands of tiny static pops. The ambient air temperature around him spiked. One for all, full cal 5%. Izuku's movement was instantaneous. He didn't retreat. He simply vanished from Sasuke's direct line of sight. Sasuke's palm strike hit empty air. His Sharingan, trained to track high-speed movement, widened in shock. Where did he go? He didn't use the body flicker jutsu. There was no chakra spike. He just moved. Izuku had sidestepped, appearing directly beside Sasuke. With surgical precision, Izuku raised a finger and flicked Sasuke right on the forehead. It wasn't a Delaware smash. It was just a normal flick, reinforced by 5% of one for all. Thwack! The kinetic force of the flick sent Sasuke tumbling sideways. He rolled across the grass, skidding to a halt near Sakura, who shrieked in surprise. Sasuke scrambled to his feet, a bright red mark blossoming on his forehead. He touched it, his hand trembling with rage. What is that electricity? You said no ninjutsu. It's not ninjutsu, Izuku explained, the green lightning still arcing over his skin, his eyes glowing with an emerald intensity. It's my quirk. It's a biological energy accumulation. When I activate my power, the excess kinetic energy bleeds off as visible static. It enhances my physical strength and speed. Sasuke's Sharingan spun furiously. He stared at Izuku, analyzing the way the green lightning moved, the way Izuku's muscles coiled, the exact positioning of his feet. If it's physical movement, Sasuke thought, his lips curling into a desperate, arrogant sneer, my eyes can copy it. I see, Sasuke whispered. He forcefully burned the image of Izuku's footwork into his brain. The precise angle of the ankles, the tension in the calves, the explosive push-off from the toes. Let's see how you handle your own speed, Sasuke declared. He bent his knees, mimicking Izuku's exact stance. He attempted to channel his chakra to his leg muscles to replicate the explosive, instant acceleration he had just witnessed. Kakashi, watching from the sidelines, suddenly stood up straight, his visible eye widening in alarm. Sasuke, no! Stop! But Sasuke had already launched himself. He tried to execute the full cowl sidestep. He pushed off the ground with maximum force, attempting to replicate the sheer, unadulterated torque Izuku's body generated. It was a catastrophic mistake. The human body of a shinobi is designed to channel chakra to enhance speed and strength, acting as a spiritual lubricant and amplifier for the muscles. But Izuku's movements were not powered by chakra. They were powered by One for All, a stockpiled accumulation of 8 generations of physical strength. Izuku's bones were exponentially denser. His muscle fibers were reinforced by years of agonizing training specifically designed to keep his limbs from exploding under the pressure. Sasuke did not have that biology. As Sasuke attempted the explosive dash, a loud, sickening pop echoed across the clearing. Sasuke screamed. He didn't even cover half the distance. He collapsed mid-dash, tumbling violently into the dirt, clutching his right calf, his face contorted in absolute agony. The Sharingan flickered and died, returning his eyes to their normal black as the pain shattered his concentration. Sasuke! Sakura screamed, sprinting toward him. Naruto gasped, his eyes wide. Izuku was there in a flash of green lightning. He dropped to his knees beside the writhing Uchiha. Don't move him! Let me see! Izuku gently but firmly moved Sasuke's hands away from his leg. He carefully ran his fingers over the muscle. The bone is intact, but the gastrocnemius muscle, the main calf muscle, is severely torn. He tried to generate too much torque without the skeletal density to support the fulcrum. Kakashi appeared beside them, his face grave. He knelt down, pressing 2 glowing green fingers, a rudimentary medical jutsu, against Sasuke's leg to numb the pain. Sasuke gritted his teeth, tears of pain and utter humiliation prickling at the corners of his eyes. He glared up at Izuku, his voice a hoarse whisper. What did you do to me? I didn't do anything, Sasuke, Izuku said softly, genuine sympathy in his eyes. You tried to copy a movement your body isn't biologically equipped to handle. My quirk doesn't just give me power, it requires a specific physical vessel. My bones are significantly denser than yours to handle the recoil. When you copied the exact muscular contraction without the reinforced bone structure or the energy stockpile, your muscle tore itself apart trying to achieve the velocity. Kakashi sighed heavily, looking at his ambitious, foolish student. The Sharingan is a powerful tool, Sasuke. It can copy any physical movement, or jutsu. But it cannot copy genetics. You cannot copy a Kekkei Genkai, and you cannot copy whatever alien biology Midoriya possesses. Let this be a lesson in hubris. Kakashi lifted Sasuke easily into his arms. Sakura, Naruto, training is suspended for the next hour. I need to take Sasuke to the hospital to get this healed. Midoriya, stay here. Yes, sensei, the team mumbled. As Kakashi's body flickered away with Sasuke, the clearing descended into an awkward, heavy silence. Sakura looked at Izuku, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. Naruto simply stared at the spot where Sasuke had been writhing. He broke Sasuke, Naruto whispered, almost to himself. Without even touching him. He just existed, and Sasuke broke trying to be like him. Izuku looked down at his gloved hands, feeling a familiar, heavy guilt. Even when he tried not to hurt people, his power was dangerous. One for all was a burden he still struggled to carry without causing collateral damage. Before the gloom could fully settle over the trio, a sound echoed from the edge of the forest. It was a strange, rhythmic booming sound, accompanied by a loud, boisterous voice counting at the top of its lungs. 997. 998. 999. 1000. Bursting from the tree line like a green cannonball was a man. He wore a skin-tight, emerald green spandex bodysuit, bright orange leg warmers, and a Leaf Village flak jacket. His bowl-cut hair was impossibly shiny, and his eyebrows were thick enough to be considered separate entities. He was walking on his hands. And sitting on his feet, holding a similar pose while completely inverted, was a younger, miniature version of the man, wearing the exact same outfit, save for the flak jacket, his arms heavily wrapped in white bandages. YOSH. The older man boomed, flipping right side up with a flawless backspring, his protege landing perfectly beside him. The morning air is ripe with the fragrant blossoms of youth. Kakashi, my eternal rival, I have come to challenge. The man froze, striking a dramatic pose, pointing a finger into the clearing. His teeth flashed with an actual, physical ping of light. Wait! The man declared. You are not Kakashi! Where is my cool and hip rival? Sakura face-palmed. Naruto groaned loudly. Oh man, not bushy brow and super bushy brow. Izuku, however, was fascinated. He pulled out his scroll, instantly beginning to write. Subject A and B possess incredible upper body strength and perfect equilibrium. Their matching attire suggests a master-disciple relationship. The sheer volume of their voices implies a lack of stealth, contradictory to standard shinobi doctrine. The younger boy, Rock Lee, stepped forward. His large, perfectly round eyes locked onto Izuku. He didn't look at Izuku's green hair or his metal boots. Lee's eyes traced the lines of Izuku's muscular definition visible through the bodysuit. He looked at the heavy scarring on Izuku's right arm and hands. Guy-sensei, Lee said, his voice brimming with intense, burning respect. This boy, he is a warrior of the highest caliber. Might Guy paused his posing, looking closely at Izuku. The goofy, over-the-top demeanor faded slightly, replaced by the sharp, analytical gaze of Konoha's premier taijutsu master. Guy's eyes widened. By the flames of youth, Guy whispered in awe. Lee, look at his stance. Look at his center of gravity. And his chakra, there is none. Yet his physical vitality burns like a raging bonfire. Lee walked toward Izuku, stopping a respectful distance away. He bowed deeply, a perfect 90-degree angle. Greetings. Lee shouted politely. My name is Rock Lee. I am the handsome devil of the Hidden Leaf Village. I do not sense any chakra within you, yet my warrior spirit tells me you are incredibly strong. The scars upon your arms speak of 1,000 battles fought with your bare hands. Please, allow me the honor of a spar. Izuku stopped writing. He looked at Rock Lee. He saw the bandaged arms, the calloused knuckles, the absolute, unyielding determination in the boy's eyes. Izuku knew that look. He saw it in the mirror every morning before he met All Might. It was the look of someone who had been told they were born powerless, who had decided to break their own body to prove the world wrong. A profound, immediate kinship bloomed in Izuku's chest. Izuku put his scroll away. He returned Lee's bow with equal respect. My name is Izuku Midoriya. I am a hero in training. I would be honored to spar with you, Rock Lee. Naruto's jaw dropped. Wait, you're gonna fight Bushy Brow? Are you crazy? He's a freak, Naruto, Izuku said softly, not taking his eyes off Lee. Do not disrespect his hard work. I can tell just by looking at him. He has trained harder than anyone else in this village. Lee's eyes welled with literal, cascading anime tears. Guy-sensei. Did you hear him? He recognizes my springtime of youth. Guy was openly weeping, giving Lee a thumbs up. I heard it, Lee. Show him the power of your youth. Show him the strong fist. Izuku unclasped his cowl, letting it drop, and rolled his shoulders. Are there any rules, Lee-kun? Taijutsu only. Lee declared, dropping into his unique, low stance, one arm extended forward, the other tucked behind his back. Do not hold back, Midoriya-kun. For I shall not, Izuku smiled. It was a fierce, joyful smile. It was the smile of someone who finally found someone who spoke his language, the language of hard work and physical limits. Izuku didn't just activate full cowl. He shifted his posture entirely. He dropped low, placing his right hand flat on the dirt, bending his knees deeply, raising his left leg slightly off the ground. It was an unorthodox, almost animalistic stance, one for all, full cowl shoot style. I won't, Izuku promised, green lightning exploding around him in a vibrant halo. Here I come. They vanished simultaneously. Naruto and Sakura couldn't even track the initial clash. They only heard it. Boom! A shockwave of displaced air blasted across the clearing, flattening the grass in a massive circle. In the center, Izuku and Lee were locked in combat. Lee had launched a flying high kick, the Leaf Hurricane. Izuku hadn't blocked it with his arms. Instead, he had executed a rapid, breakdancing-style flare, spinning on his hands to deliver a devastating upward kick with his iron soul, meeting Leash in midair. The impact was thunderous. The dense metal of Izuku's boot met the intensely conditioned bone of Lee's leg. Neither gave an inch. Lee used the recoil to flip backward, landing lightly on his feet. Incredible! Your legs are weapons of mass destruction. But speed is my specialty, Lee blurred, reappearing beside Izuku, unleashing a flurry of punches so fast they created a wall of fists. Izuku ducked under the first three, his danger sense allowing him to thread the needle through the barrage. He pushed one for all to 8%. Izuku dropped to his hands again, using his upper body strength to act as a pivot point. He became a human top, spinning his legs in a rapid, devastating circle. Shoot style, St. Louis smash, low output. The spinning kicks forced Lee to retreat, the sheer wind pressure generated by Izuku's legs cutting shallow trenches into the earth. Guy-sensei! Lee yelled over the noise, leaping into the air to avoid a sweeping kick. He is too fast. His strikes are incredibly heavy. If I am hit cleanly, I will sustain severe damage. Then you know what to do, Lee! Guy shouted proudly from the sidelines. To protect your youth, and to honor a worthy opponent, you have my permission. Take them off. Lee landed on the top of the middle wooden stump. A massive grin broke across his face. He sat down and began to unwrap the orange leg warmers around his calves. Sakura gasped. Wait, weights? He's been fighting with weights on? Izuku stopped his assault, standing up straight. He watched as Lee dropped the two incredibly thick, heavy metal bands from his legs. They fell to the ground. Crash! Boom! The impact shook the entire training ground. Two massive craters, easily 10 feet wide, erupted where the weights landed. Dust and debris rained down on the clearing. Naruto's eyes bulged out of his head. Are you kidding me? Those things must weigh a ton each. Izuku's eyes widened in sheer, unadulterated awe. He moves like that, while carrying that much weight. His skeletal structure, his muscular endurance, it's beyond human limits. He really is just like me, before All Might. But he did it all himself. Midoriya-kun! Lee shouted, standing up on the stump, feeling incredibly light. Thank you for waiting. Now I shall show you my true speed. Lee disappeared. It wasn't a blur. It wasn't a fast movement. To the naked eye, it was teleportation. Izuku's danger sense screamed. Not because Lee wanted to kill him, but because the incoming kinetic energy was off the charts. Izuku barely had time to cross his arms in front of his face before Lee materialized in front of him, delivering a straight punch to Izuku's guard. The force was staggering. Even with one for all at 8% and his metallic gauntlets bracing the impact, Izuku was blasted backward, his iron saws carving deep trenches into the earth as he skidded for 20 feet. Before Izuku could stop his momentum, Lee was behind him. Leaf whirlwind, a spinning back kick slammed into Izuku's ribs. Izuku grunted, the wind knocked from his lungs. He was launched into the air. He's faster than Gran Torino. Izuku thought wildly, reorienting himself midair. He's pure, unadulterated speed. If I tried to match his speed, I'll have to push past 15%, and I risk breaking my environment, or hurting him if I land a solid hit. Lee leaped into the air, appearing below Izuku. Primary Lotus. Lee attempted to wrap his bandages around Izuku to initiate his devastating piledriver technique. Not happening! Izuku yelled. Izuku twisted his body violently. He channeled 8% into his right leg, executing a brutal, downward axe kick. Shoot style, Manchester smash. Lee sensed the immense pressure of the kick. He abandoned the grapple, crossing his arms over his head to block. Izuku's iron soul met Lee's forearms. The resulting shockwave shattered the sound barrier. A massive ring of compressed air exploded outward. Naruto and Sakura were blown off their feet, tumbling across the grass. Even Guy had to brace his feet and cross his arms to avoid being pushed back. The force drove both boys down. They crashed into the center of the training ground simultaneously, creating a crater 30 feet wide. A massive cloud of dust plumed into the air, obscuring the battlefield. Silence descended on the training ground, save for the patter of falling dirt and debris. Naruto coughed, waving the dust away from his face. Did they kill each other? Sakura looked on in horror, unable to speak. Slowly, the dust began to clear. In the center of the massive crater, Izuku and Lee were still standing. They were inches apart. Izuku's right fist was raised, glowing with a fierce green lightning, stopped exactly half an inch from Lee's face. Lee's leg was raised high, his foot positioned perfectly, stopped exactly half an inch from the side of Izuku's neck. Both boys were panting heavily, sweat pouring down their bruised and dirt-streaked faces. Their muscles trembled with the sheer adrenaline of the clash. For a long moment neither moved. The tension was thick enough to cut with a kunai. Then, simultaneously, they both lowered their limbs. Izuku dropped his full cowl, the green lightning fading. He let out a long, exhausted laugh, wiping the sweat from his brow. Lee lowered his leg, a massive, bright smile breaking across his face. That was amazing, Lee-kun, Izuku breathed, offering his hand. Your speed is incredible. I couldn't even track you for a second there. Lee firmly grasped Izuku's hand, shaking it vigorously. And your strength is like that of a god, Midoriya-kun. I felt as though I was kicking a mountain. I have never fought anyone who could match my strong fist with purely physical might. Suddenly, a blur of green spandex descended upon them. Might Guy tackled both boys into a massive, suffocating hug. Tears were streaming down his face in rivers. Beautiful! Guy wailed, squeezing the breath out of them. Absolutely beautiful. The flames of youth burned so brightly today. A clash of pure, unadulterated passion. Lee, you have found a rival to match your spirit. Midoriya, your green flames are a testament to hard work. Izuku, completely overwhelmed and slightly suffocated, could only pat Guy awkwardly on the back. Thank you, Guy-sensei. When Guy finally released them, Lee looked at Izuku with a profound respect. Midoriya-kun. I must confess something. I cannot use ninjutsu. I cannot use genjutsu. I was told I could never be a ninja, but I swore to prove that I could become a splendid ninja with taijutsu alone. Izuku's breath hitched. It was exactly as he had suspected. I know what that's like, Izuku said softly, the memories of his quirkless childhood rushing back. The bullying, the isolation, the crushing weight of the word impossible. In my world, almost everyone is born with a special power. I wasn't. For a long time, I was completely powerless. People told me I could never be a hero. But someone believed in me, and gave me a chance. The power I use, it was given to me. But I had to break my body to learn how to use it. Lee's eyes widened. He understood instantly. The scars on Izuku's arms weren't just battle wounds. They were the price of ambition. They were the physical manifestation of a boy refusing to give up. You are a true warrior, Izuku Midoriya, Lee said, dropping the honorifics, signifying a bond of brotherhood. Whether you are a shinobi or a hero, you carry the will of fire within you. Izuku felt tears prick his own eyes. The alienation and terror of the past 24 hours began to crack. He wasn't entirely alone in this strange, violent world. He had found someone who understood his heart. Thank you, Lee. Izuku smiled brightly. From the edge of the crater, Kakashi suddenly appeared, dropping down with a still limping, but healed, Sasuke leaning against him. Kakashi surveyed the massive crater, the destroyed terrain, and the three green-clad figures bonding in the center. He let out a long, long sigh. Well, Kakashi muttered, his visible eye twitching slightly. It seems our auxiliary member has integrated perfectly with the village's loudest demographic. Heaven help us all. Sasuke glared at the crater, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles were white. He had broken his own body trying to copy Izuku, and Izuku had just fought Rock Lee, a boy Sasuke had previously dismissed as a joke, to a standstill that destroyed the training ground. The gap in their strength was a chasm. As Izuku walked out of the crater, clapping Lee on the back, the first true bonds of his new life were forged. He was far from home, stuck in a world of assassins, but as long as there were people like Rock Lee, Izuku knew he could survive. The green flames of youth had been ignited, and Deku was ready to let them burn.